Back at ESPN's Wide World of Sports, this is 680 The Fan's continuing coverage of Atlanta Braves Spring Training 2019. Happy Thursday to you. It is Thursday, February 28th, and that may not mean a whole lot to you if you're thinking about the calendar, but what it does mean is that we are 1 month to the day away from opening day. And of course, the Braves will be in Philadelphia to open the season 1 month from today, about 1,200 miles north of here in the city of brotherly love. And spring training moving along at a pretty good clip here. As I talked to Brian Snitker the other day, I said, "You're a third of the way through this thing already." And he stopped and said, "Man, we are. This thing is moving along really, really well." So a good camp to this point. We've seen some really good performances on the mound, and we'll talk about a couple of those standouts here in just a moment. Braves coming off a 4-0 win against the Cardinals down in Jupiter yesterday. As I mentioned, some really good, solid pitching performances. We saw Kyle Wright make the start. He went 2 scoreless innings, struck out 3, but for me, the most impressive part was 35 pitches, 23 strikes, attacking the strike zone. He was 94 to 96 with the fastball with command. So you love to see that in his first time out. Of course, Kyle Wright, one of those guys competing for a spot in the rotation or in the bullpen. We'll see what happens here over the next 4 weeks, how things shake out as Grapefruit League play continues. But talking to Brian Snitker before the game yesterday, he made an interesting point. He said, look, when we break camp, speaking about the bullpen, we're going to take the best 8 guys north with us. That being said, for those fringe guys who may not make the club, who may start out the season, whether it's in AA or AAA, you're only a phone call away. And you think back to last season, Braves used over 30 different arms throughout the course of last season. So they're going to need these guys to stay ready. And, again, you're going to see a lot of those guys get chances to make, splashes here in the big leagues. And I'm going to make my first bold prediction of the new calendar year. We are going to see one of the Braves' young arms at some point in this season in Atlanta, and I'm speaking of Kyle Muller, the young left-hander, 95, 96 with his fastball. We've seen him twice in Grapefruit League action so far. Of course, Kyle, one of the highly regarded pitching prospects that the Braves loaded up on here over the last few years, and I do think there is a realistic chance we could see Kyle Muller in a Braves uniform in Atlanta. I'm not going to say first half of the year, but maybe July, August, September. I do think his stuff plays at the big league level. I think he's getting very, very close to being ready, and I like what we've seen so far. It's only been 2 appearances from Muller so far, but again, another guy who's out there. He's pounding the strike zone. He has a lot of confidence when he takes the mound. Same can be said for Joey Wentz. We saw him again yesterday as well. Those 2 guys with extremely bright futures, and I talked to Snit after the game yesterday, and he was certainly impressed with the way all these young pitchers, and I'm talking about Toussaint and Fried and Wright and Muller and Wentz, and the list goes on and on. Allard looked good yesterday as well. All these guys going out there on the attack, they're throwing strikes, they're cutting down on the walks, something that really troubled this pitching staff a year ago, and that certainly has to be music to Rick Kranitz's ears. The Braves' new pitching coach still getting acclimated with a lot of these arms he's working with here in camp. But again, if you're a pitching guy, if you're a prospect junkie, you've got to be really excited with what you've seen reading the box scores here in the first week of games. Speaking of games, Braves and Tigers here at Disney today. It's a 1 o'clock first pitch. We'll see Touki Toussaint make his second appearance of the Grapefruit League session, and Don Sutton and Ben Ingram will have the call of that on 1340 AM, 103.7 FM back in Atlanta, and the MLB At Bat app as well. We also saw a handful of regulars take the trip down to Jupiter yesterday, and speaking of regulars, again, tomorrow is still the day we expect to see Dansby Swanson and Josh Donaldson make their 2019 Grapefruit League debuts. Great to see both those guys get in the lineup. They're healthy, they feel good, and again, the Braves just taking it slow with both those guys, and we will expect to see Nick Markakis maybe over the weekend or early next week. So getting a chance to see all the regulars get back into game speed action, and again, no need to rush any of those guys here. We still have a month to go between now and opening day. Again, Braves and Tigers today at 1 o'clock, and as I mentioned, Ben Ingram and Don Sutton will have the call for you, so stay with us here for continuing coverage of Braves Spring Training 2019 as we come to you home and road. Home today and tomorrow. Tigers today, Blue Jays tomorrow. So a little home cooking for the Braves after a couple of really long road trips here in the early portion of Grapefruit League play. So again, stay tuned for our coverage right here on 680thefan.com, and make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Hey, also expecting to see Mike Soroka throw off flat ground here today. You'll recall Soroka's been shut down for the last 4 or 5 days with some shoulder soreness. We do expect him to see on the field here today throwing off flat ground. So that is step 1 in the progression for Mike Soroka to ramp things back up here again. So looking forward to seeing him, and we'll likely visit with him later on today or tomorrow to see how everything's feeling after throwing off flat ground. So again, Braves and Tigers, hope you can join Ben and Don for the call at 1 o'clock here from ESPN's Wide World of Sports.